Hey bookworms and constant readers, welcome back to the channel. You saw that thumbnail, you know it's all about Stephen King. We're going through Stephen King in publication order, but we kind of started in the middle. So this is the next book that he published from the last book I reviewed, which was Under the Dome. And it is Full Dark, No Stars. This is the first edition hardback. There's the spine, and then the back has got Mr. King on it. And then this one, this is actually the one that I read because I don't read my first editions. And it's the paperback. Then you got the spine. And with these paperbacks, they've changed them so much, it's really hard to get your paperbacks to match on a shelf. That's the only thing bad about these. This cover is okay. It's nothing really special. I would give this maybe a 3 out of 5. If I saw it on a shelf and didn't know about it, what would catch my eye is it's a Stephen King book. Besides that, And then the original, I think, is more fitting to the book itself. The Woman Alone in the Dark, because this 3 of the 4 stories in this book, they deal with women, and 2 of them are pretty horrific. The one thing about this book is, especially if you're a woman, it's hard to read at times. There's some really disturbing things in this book. This book reminds me a lot of like a Richard Bachman book more than a Stephen King book. They're very dark. There's 4 stories in all. The first is 1922. Then you have Big Driver. You have Fair Extension, and then you have A Good Marriage. The synopsis on the back is kind of all over the place, so I'm not going to read it. But like all short story collections, I'm going to go through each story, tell you what it's about, and then give you my rating on it. So the first story, it's the longest one. It's 1922, and it's told by this husband who's writing a letter of confession in a hotel room, and you're learning of the story through his narration and what he's writing in this letter. It's really cool. And he's confessing to how him and his son killed his wife in 1922. Now, at the time that he's writing this letter, it's like 10 years later. It's like 1932, 1933. And all that has become of his life and his son's is nothing but heartache, turmoil, bad luck ever since they did this deed. It's a really cool story. It was my favorite story of the whole book. 5 out of 5 on that one. It was so good. And if you have Netflix, they made it into a movie on Netflix, and the movie does the short story justice. I mean, it is so good. The next one is Big Driver. Big Driver It was probably the hardest one to read. So it's about this writer named Tess, and she goes around to these bookshops and libraries, and she does these meet and greets and signs books. She does this little 45-minute speech. She does a short Q&A. She gets paid and she leaves. Well, she gets sent into a trap that results in her getting almost beaten to death and brutally raped and left for dead. And when she gets home and gets herself all cleaned up, she doesn't call the police or anything. She doesn't want the publicity because she's a famous writer. She decides to take it upon herself to bring justice to this guy who did this to her. Because where she was left, there were other skeletons and rotting corpses of women that have had this done to them, and they didn't survive. And so she's going to track this guy down, and she's going to make him pay for what he did. Very solid story, very hard to read and get through. It's very dark. Solid 5 out of 5 on that one. That one was also turned into a movie for, I believe it was Lifetime. I don't remember the year, but if you look it up, you should be able to find the movie Big Driver. And if I remember correctly, it was pretty close to what the short story was. But yeah, it was definitely like a oh my god type story. The next is Fair Extension. This is the shortest of the book, but it was the most fun. It was so fun to read. So this guy, Dave, I think his name is Dave Streeter. He is dying of cancer, and he's at the stage where it's terminal. He only has like 6 months left to live. He really shouldn't be driving, but he is, and he constantly has to pull over because he's always getting sick. He carries a bunch of bags in his car that he can throw up in, and he pulls off to the side of the road because he's going to be sick, and he gets out of his car to throw the bag in this roadside trash can, and he notices across the road there's a roadside stand, and at first he thinks the sign says hair extensions, which he thought was funny. Then he reads the sign again and sees that it says fair extensions. And so he goes over because he's curious, what is this all about? And when he gets over there, this strange dude greets him, and I want to say his name was Elvid. I think it was Elvid, Elvid, Elvid. And he notices all these weird, like, strange things. Like, if you look close, his teeth are pointed. He has really long fingers. His shadow doesn't match his body. And he's talking to this guy, and this guy sells extensions, whatever kind of extension you need. If you need better credit, he can sell you a credit extension. Make your credit just wonderful. You can get loans, do whatever. He prides himself on guys with small penises get a penis extension. And all this comes at a price. And he tells Dave, I can give you the extension that you need. And Dave is like, you don't even know me. And he says, I can give you 15 or 20 more years. And he convinces him to try it out. Well, Dave tells him, we haven't agreed to anything. And he tells him, we will. He says, come back and see me in like a week or so. Go to your doctor, have some tests run. You'll be surprised at what you find. And so Dave goes on his merry way, and he goes and sees his doctor. His cancer's gone. There's no trace of it. He's feeling stronger and better, and he goes back and he sees this guy, and there he is on the side of the road. And he's waiting for him. And Dave he can't believe it. And he says, now let's talk about price. And the seller tells him, I can give you 15, 20, maybe more years, but it's going to cost you 15% of your income for the rest of your life. And he tells him how to make his payments, and whatever you do, don't miss a payment. And then the kicker is the other price that Dave has to pay. And I'm not going to tell you what that is because it'll totally ruin the story. But the kicker, you're just like, what? Read the story. It is so good. It's only maybe 30, 40 pages. Totally worth it. Solid 4.5 out of 5. I wish it was longer. That's why I can't give it a 5. I wish it was longer. It is so good. It was my favorite out of the whole book. And then the final story is a good marriage. And all I'm going to say is this. What would you do if you found out that your husband, or your wife for that matter, was a serial killer? That's what this story is about. This woman named Darcy is at home, and her husband is out of town on business, and she inadvertently finds his little secret and discovers that for the last 20 plus years she's been married to a serial killer. And what does she do? You've got to read the book to find out. I'm not going to ruin it. It was so good. 5 out of 5. The entire book, 5 out of 5. These are 4 of Stephen King's best short stories. They were so good. Highly recommend you pick up Full Dark, No Stars. That's all I got for you. Till next time, read more books.